Hey guys, Chris Carlin from Tab Times here to take a closer look at the iPhone 7 and the iPhone 7 Plus, recently announced and available worldwide. The big question is, which one should you go for, or should you stick with the 6S and 6S Plus from last year, or wait until next year? The first thing you'll notice is that the iPhone 7 and 7 Plus are the same size and shape as the 6S and 6S Plus from last year, so the look, feel and weight will be very familiar. Both new iPhones are a tiny bit lighter than last year's versions, however, and for the first time are also water resistant. The horizontal antenna band on the back has been removed, and the camera bump is now moulded out of the same piece of aluminum as the rest of the chassis. Obviously, the biggest difference here is size. The iPhone 7 comes with a 4.7-inch screen, while the Plus, as with last year's iPhone 6S Plus, has a 5.5-inch display. The iPhone 7 Plus, as the larger of the two, has a 20mm height advantage, almost 11mm wider profile and ever so slightly thicker build. Even for those with large paws, it's not exactly easy to manage one-handed. The removal of the 3.5mm headphone port means that both new iPhones have a speaker grill on both sides of the Lightning connector, where last year's version had a headphone jack. But only the right one emits sound though. The other stereo speaker shares the earpiece speaker grill on top of the display. Of course, the new solid-state Force Touch home button doesn't move anymore, but it does feel very similar to last year's version, until the Taptic engine kicks in, that is. What all this means in real-life terms is that the iPhone 7 is more of a traditional iPhone size, where the iPhone 7 Plus is a lot more unwieldy. It also has to be noted that Android phone makers have managed to fit the same size screen into a much smaller body, and one thing that Apple has never really seemed too interested in is shrinking the size of the chin and the forehead up top and below the display. If you're clumsy, don't have particularly big pockets, or don't really plan on using your iPhone as a media consumption device, then the iPhone 7 Plus might be a little bit of overkill for you. It's also a whole 50 grams heavier than the lighter version. That's 35% heavier in case you're counting. At 188 grams, it's right up there with the heaviest smartphones around right now. The good news is that additional screen real estate and overall size means that Apple is also able to cram in additional battery life in the 7 Plus. The smaller iPhone 7 has a 1960 mAh battery compared to 2900 in the larger version. Interestingly, Apple lists the battery life of the iPhone 7 Plus at 50% longer than the regular iPhone 7. All things being equal to last year's iPhones, the iPhone 7 Plus will probably turn out to have the slightly better battery life of the two, but that kind of detailed battery life information will take a little while to filter through. Of course, the higher pixel density on the iPhone 7 Plus also means that it has more pixels to push around, but no matter which iPhone 7 you choose, both have a 25% brighter display than last year's models, and the power for that is going to have to come from somewhere. Perhaps more important to note though is that the new iPhone 7 has a 14.5% larger battery than the iPhone 6S, whereas the iPhone 7 Plus only has a 5.5% increase from last year's Plus version. This means the difference in battery life between the iPhone 7s should be significantly decreased this year. Only time will tell, but I wouldn't be surprised to find out that this year's iPhones have much more similar battery life than last year. Both new iPhone 7s are rocking the quad-core Apple A10 Fusion chip, which should add to their general power efficiency because the CPU now has a choice between low power and high performance for more demanding tasks. One thing worth noting is that the iPhone 7 Plus has 3GB of RAM compared to the 2GB found in the iPhone 7. Not that iPhones have ever had any real trouble with stuttering or lag, but if you want to make sure you have the best specs possible, then you're going to want to opt for the iPhone 7 Plus. As you no doubt already have noticed, the other big difference between the iPhone 7 and iPhone 7 Plus is the presence of two cameras on the back of the larger version. No doubt this is one of the contributing factors to the smaller increase in battery size from last year on the iPhone 7 Plus compared to the 7, because that extra camera lens had to fit in somewhere. Both new iPhones have a wider aperture than the 6S. They've added two LEDs for a total of 4, and now the regular iPhone 7 gets optical image stabilization as well as the Plus variant. Both new iPhone 7s also up the front-facing megapixel count from last year from 5 megapixels to 7 megapixels. But what about the differences between the 7 and 7 Plus? What will you miss out on if you don't go for the iPhone 7 Plus? Well, that extra 56mm f2.8 zoom lens, that's what. The main camera on both phones is the same at 28mm with an f1.8 aperture, but the iPhone 7 Plus has an additional zoom lens at 2 times magnification. This means that in the camera app you can seamlessly switch from one lens to the other, achieving legitimate 2 times optical zoom without the need for a bulky zoom mechanism. In all honesty, this is the killer feature of the iPhone 7 Plus, and any avid smartphone photographer out there is going to find no question as to which iPhone they should buy. Even if you're not particularly into the additional size and weight of the iPhone 7 Plus, if you're into smartphone photography, it's very hard to go past that additional zoom lens. You'll also get up to 10 times digital zoom, and Apple will be releasing a free update later in the year that will allow the iPhone 7 Plus to capture depth information on the second lens, so you can create artificial bokeh effects via the iPhone 7 Plus's software. Price, of course, is the other big difference between the iPhone 7 and the iPhone 7 Plus. Both versions come in 32GB, 128GB, and 256GB versions, but of course there's about a $100 price difference between the Plus and regular size. Considering you get all the benefits of that additional zoom lens, a larger battery, larger Full HD screen with higher pixel density, and 50% more RAM, the answer here is simple. If you can afford the iPhone 7 Plus and aren't put off by the additional size and weight, then it is obviously the iPhone 7 you want to have. In all honesty, the size and camera are the only real things separating these two that people will care about, besides the price of course. So which do you think is the better buy? Hit the comments and let us know which one you'll be buying, or whether you'll be holding off until next year's 10th anniversary iPhone. Don't forget to hit us up across social media on @TabTimes and subscribe to TabTimes for more content on the new iPhones and plenty more, because TabTimes is all tech, all the time. Shut up, bird!